So I take refuge in the Buddha, the one bright mind. I take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings of the truth. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community who lives in harmony and loving kindness. So we're continuing on the Mumonkan, the gateless gate. This is case number 25. Now in the koans, each the koan is divided up into cases, into particular koans that are practice points. And each koan brings out and challenges a particular fixed view that we have. Because the foundation of all the koans is the non-dual. The nature of truth is that things are not separate. That there is oneness, truth, transcendence, and it is directly and vividly experienceable, recognizing. So all the koans are about some aspect of the non-dual, either recognizing it, being one with it, seeing how it functions, seeing how it serves others. And by non-dual, we don't mean that it's a thing. There's not this thing out there called non-dual. If I just move and get the non-dual or get into the non-dual awareness or find the space of mind that is the non-dual, that's not it. Because if it were a thing, it was out there, then it would be dual. It would be there's here and there's there. So when we talk about non-dual, when we talk about things really being whole and complete, we have to say that we're using words, and the function of words is to discriminate this from that. But non-dual really means everything has to be included in it. So that means that this koan is about us. This koan is about our mind. And so the first way of working on any koan is there's a story, and often the story is about some ancient this or that. It's never about that. This is the non-dual. So it's always about your own life. It's always about our own mind. And there might be a particular language that you have to learn a little bit of. But, when you see the point, it's always present. So we're going to try to look at a particular koan, the koan number 25 from the Mumonkan. And as I mentioned, it's not about some old guys in China. I mean, how would that be relevant to us? It has nothing to do with old guys in China. But often with a koan, they're a little challenged. They say, okay, we're going to throw up this fog, this smoke screen, and I want to see whether you understand this well enough to actually see through the smoke screen to see what's true. There's a fog, and do you know your way home well enough that you can find your way home through the fog? And if you can, that says, oh yeah, I understand this material much better. If you get lost in the fog, well, it means you got to explore the path more thoroughly. So here's the koan that we have, and koans come in 3 parts. There's always the koan, the particular case that you work on. There's a commentary, a poem, and some other parts to it. And sometimes we work on all the parts. Sometimes we just touch a little bit of it. So here's the koan. And if you were working on this koan, this is what you would come into the teacher and recite. Master Kyozan had a dream. He went to Maitreya's place and was given the 3rd seat. A venerable monk there struck the table with a gavel and announced, "Today the talk will be given by the monk in the 3rd seat." Kyozan struck the table with the gavel and said, "The Dharma of the Mahayana goes beyond the 4 propositions and transcends the 100 negations." Listen carefully. Master Kyozan had a dream. Kyozan was a Chinese monk who lived probably in the 9th century. He went to Maitreya's place. Maitreya is considered the Buddha of the future. So the Buddha that's out front there is always Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha is the Buddha of this era, born approximately 2,500 years ago, 2,600 years ago. And Maitreya is kind of the Buddha of the succeeding Kalpa in Buddhist iconography. In Buddhism, there's lots of Buddhas. There's infinite number of Buddhas. I mean, perfection itself is not the provenance of somebody else. So in some traditions, there is one Son of God for all times. In Buddhism, there's an infinite number of Buddhas for all times. So there's a little bit different contrast there. He was given the third seat. We'll talk about that. The venerable monk there struck the table with a gavel and announced, the talk will be given by the monk of the third seat. Okay. So let's start looking at this koan, how it might work on it. So the first thing is, starts about with this guy name, this person's name, Master Kyozan. Okay? Now, if we're working on a koan and it's non-dual, who's he talking about? That's the first koan. Who's this koan talking about? You know, so all of us, we go to the grocery store and we see there's 50 kinds of olive oil on the shelf, and they're all labeled, you know, olive oil this and olive oil that, and virgin and extra virgin olive oil from Italy and olive oil from Greece, and they're all olive oil. So we start off here with this particular koan. They've got a label on it. The label might be Homitsu. The label might be, you know, Jomon. The label might be Kip. In this particular case, the label is Master Kyozan. So who's he talking about? What's this about? So that's the first thing. And so the first aspect of this koan is the fixed belief that this thing I am is my name. That my name refers to some real thing in here. Obviously, that's just a fantasy, because none of us have the same bodies we had a few years ago. None of us are wearing the same clothes. None of us probably even have most of the same friends. None of us think the same thoughts. None of us, what is this thing that our label refers to? So we look at the fixed belief that the label is actually constant, real, refers to something. We look at the fixed belief of, well, I am here and everybody else is out there. Who are all these people out there? So we have to again look at that fixed belief. So it's very easy to look at, because everything you see with your own eyes, right? Everything visual you process with your own brain. So you're looking out there and you think, oh, it's all out there. There's a big circle behind me, in front of you, and it's out there. But all the processing is held right where you sit. All the information is right where you sit. There is no information out there. There's only information right where you sit. And the same thing is true with smelling. Same thing is true with feeling. The same thing is true with belief. Fantasies of time. So the first part of the koan is to actually vividly come to the direct realization that there is no out there. It's all my perception. It's all right here. And then the next one is Master Kyozan, had a dream. Well, we'll talk about the dream in a minute. But the next one is, well, when is this happening? And so we have a fixed belief about time. The convention of time is a convention. It's very useful. Even just historically, people looked at time in very, very different ways than we do with our 24-hour clock and our nanoseconds. But we can experience nothing but now. Nobody can experience anything but right now. Our minds can fantasize about, oh, tomorrow, oh, yesterday, oh, he did this, she did that, oh, I'm going to do this, oh, my mother dropped me on my head when I was a baby, and therefore But that's all fantasy in our mind. It's all our thoughts spinning around. If we actually say, who would I be without that thought? Who would I be without my mind spinning around the past and the future? All I can experience actually is right here. I might be able to experience memory if I want, but that's right here. So the next part of working on this koan is, who is it? When is it? So a koan is about, okay, we have to actually look at reality. What is the most real thing we can look at? So it's never about, I want to look at some fantasy, I got this picture in my mind of, Clark Gable, and I want to go look at my picture of Clark Gable in my mind. And so what? all the koans say, look at the most real thing. Look at the most real thing right here, right now. And see what is included in the most real thing right here, right now. That's the beginning of every koan. Now, one way of considering that, I've been really excited about Byron Katie's work lately. She has a wonderful commentary on the Diamond Sutra. And she keeps asking, well, who would you be without this belief of there's somewhere else? There's a better me somewhere. There's a better me that's about, 6.5 feet to the right. Who would you be if that better me was just a fantasy? Who would you be if the better me, once I get myself all polished up and I get all the therapy work done and I get all of my burrs and hangnails taken off, and I'm suddenly, who's that better me? When all we can experience is right here, right now. So as a convention, we label our experience here, we label it, Kyozan, George Bush, or George Washington, or George Clooney, or George Fox, But those labels are just simply temporary labels for the isness of right now, for the isness of our own experience. Non-dual. So who had this dream? This koan is talking about, of course, your own mind. It's talking about, we're the subject of this koan. It's not about some old guy. Because everything is about that life. And then we look at dream. What is a dream? The dictionary definition is, as a noun, a series of thoughts, images, and sensations occurring in a person's mind during sleep. What is sleep? A condition of body-mind typically recurs several hours during which the nervous system relatively is inactive, the eyes are closed, the muscles relaxed, and consciousness practically suspended. A decrease in body movement. Mammals undergo a classic brain wave activity, which includes dreaming. So when you're sitting here still, your muscles not moving so much, breathing quietly, maybe you close your eyes, are you dreaming or not? Are you asleep right now? What does that mean, sleep? If we look at the consciousness that is awake, and suddenly we're aware in a dream, at what point does a dream disappear? And this so-called world come back in? We all wake up from dreams and we realize, oh, that was ephemeral, that's gone. But where's your 16th birthday? Where's the meal you ate last Friday? Where was the bills you paid last month? They all disappeared and you got more of them, right? In a dream, we wake up and we think, boy, that seemed so real. And where's it gone? But especially if you've been around for a while, you think of all those traumas that teenagers have, all of those worried, gnashing anxieties that teenagers have, and then what happened to that? That was certainly a dream. Or you look at this moment. How long are you going to remember this moment? I mean, we've already forgotten most of what I said, I'm sure. And, a couple hours you think, oh, I was in the Zendo last night, and that being in the Zendo here just blurs together with all the other times that we've been in the Zendo. And tomorrow night's Zazen will turn into every other night's Zazen. Gone. So that's the next part of this koan. Who is this koan? What's a dream? Are we dreaming right now? Is this an ephemeral concatenation of events and sensations that is just flowing through us? So to actually begin the koan, that's where we start. Master Kyozan had a dream. We had a dream. Are we dreaming right now? If we're dreaming, how do we wake up? All of practice is about liberation. It's all about finding freedom. And of course, this is the Zen tradition, so nothing is about finding freedom in dogma or words. It's all about finding freedom right where we sit, the nature of our own mind. So now we start working on the other parts of the koan. Master Kyozan had a dream, and he went to Maitreya's place, the future Buddha's place, wherever that is. Where is Maitreya's place? Where is the future Buddha found? Where is the present Buddha found? If everything is non-dual, where is the future Buddha? Where is the past Buddha? Where is the present Buddha found? Those are just ideas in the mind. Where is the one place that we can have direct, vivid experience? The fantasies, the pictures that we have in our mind can be crazy, can be vast, can be spacious, they can be small, they can be picayune, we can be at war with everything and everybody. And yet we can come back right here, right now. What's more real? The mental war that we're playing out, or the reality of right here? Maitreya's future meditation hall, or this meditation hall? So we come back to the third seat we're sitting in right now, where we always sit. That's what human beings do, is we sit, stand, walk, or lie down. And you'll see, you just keep doing those three things. Sit, stand, walk, and lie down, and maybe you talk at some of the time. Sit, stand, walk, lie down. And here you are sitting right in this particular place. And every time you sit down, in a way, the same place. So you're going to give this talk. In the middle of a dream, you're going to give this talk. That's what the koan is about. How do you give a talk in the dream? How do you give a talk? What do you say? What's meaningful? What's real? All talks are to try to help inspire people to see the real nature, to find liberation, to see the nature of their mind. So what will you say when somebody meets you in an hour and says, "Where were you tonight? What did you do tonight?" And you are thrust immediately in, "I'm giving a talk." Right there. What can I say that is actually points to the liberation that is inherent and possible in someone right now? That points to the truth that we are not broken, but that we are actually whole and complete. So a koan is an opportunity to bring a particular example, a particular example of a truth alive. You know, you can answer koans in a very intellectual way, it's very dry, or you can answer them in a vivid, life-giving, dynamic way. So all koans are not just about, okay, I understand this, I understand the oneness of time and space, and I'll give somebody a lecture about it. How do we vividly bring alive those truths? So the koans are about, how do I vividly bring alive those truths? And then, of course, it's not about, I'll vividly bring it alive in here, or I'll vividly bring it alive if I'm in the Sanzen room with a teacher. How do we vividly bring alive the koan of our life wherever we are? How do we give life to our life? The conceptual mind, the mind that says this and that, the mind that puts things in boxes, very skillful. Of course, thank goodness, I've got some days I have a very good, sharp mind. Some days it's very fuzzy and blurry, the way it is. But when we believe the nature of our fixed mind, we believe this fantasy that we have constructed around ourselves about, then we begin to push everybody and everything away from our heart. Because the heart does not believe. The heart only directly, vividly tastes and feels. And so this has got to go below the level of belief. There's a very interesting woman who I've been very fond of right now, Lisa Feldman Barrett, who's a psychologist at the University of Northeastern University. And she is the world's expert right now in emotion. And she has a lovely book called How Emotion is Made. And it's very much in line with what the Buddha has been saying for all these decades, millennia. So I highly recommend her book, and I know the Buddhist version very well. So I'm going to give you the Buddhist version, and you can go and look at her YouTube videos or read her book if you want the Western version. It's well researched. So here's the Buddhist version, and you can all do this. This is not you can all experience this. So you're lying in bed at night, and it's completely dark. And still. Now, I've been traveling a lot, so I often have this experience. I'll wake up and I'll think, where in the world am I? And there's a few minutes of just, I haven't a clue. So imagine that you were a child and you woke up in the world like that, and you say, what is this? And all you're aware of is fuzz and pattern. All you're aware of is the nervous system's tingling. And as we move forward in time, we begin to develop an awareness of certain patterns, certain repetitive experiences, certain sensations that repeat themselves, certain images that come into our mind, our mother's breast, our mother's eyes, our nose, face. Gradually, someday we discover we've got these appendages. And so the first stage of practice is big, empty, spacious, undifferentiated awareness, and then we gradually differentiate more and more, and then we gradually identify, oh yeah, there are those things. And then the next stage is we say, oh, I'm going to call them hands, and I have certain functions, and then we make up a story about them. And so, that's not good, not bad. It's just the way it happens. But when all that we're aware of is just the story that we made up, and we lose awareness of the whole underlying truth, then we begin to believe the story that we made up. We begin to believe the story of he did this to me, and she did that to me, and I'm at the mercy of my anger, and so on and so forth. Instead of saying, oh, I made this whole story up. I can actually look into it. I can take certain responsibility for my own emotional states. I can look into the reality of things. I can see the underlying truth. We all know when we hear advertising or government speeches that there's agendas there. It's not the best mayonnaise in the world. They're saying something because they want us to buy it, because they want to move more product, because they don't care what they say. And we know that as consumers. We know, oh yeah, whatever they say on the front, really, the motivation is sell, sell, sell. Or a political speech has other motivations. We can see below the surface of these things. We walk into the grocery store and we don't believe all that stuff that we see on the shelf. We know that, oh yeah, this is cereal and I probably like the ingredients in the cereal, or I don't, but it's not the world's most famous crispy, crunchy, chocolate-covered delight. Well, the same is true with our lives. We have this whole series of layered experiences. We get to the top and we make this story up about our lives, and then before we know it, we're only believing the story, and we're living in the story, and the story is full of drama and full of, of tension and full of pleasures and pains. When the reality is at the bottom of the ocean, the reality is the bottom of this particular ocean, there is stillness, clarity. So when we're working on a koan, we might see the koan from that first story level, and then we have to actually go down, down, down into and see what's underneath it. What's underneath this Master Kyozan? What's underneath the dream? What's underneath the future Buddha? What is the Dharma talk that I'm going to give that comes from the source and not the surface? So as you all know, in our lives, we can give the same answer to somebody, and it can have different levels of depth. Say the same thing. A teenager can say something, and a mature person can say something and use the same words, but the depth behind it is very different. So this koan and all of the other koans are about our life, giving life to our life. And you can pay the bills in a trivial way, or you can pay the bills with a profound mind. You can go off and have dinner with a trivial, superficial understanding, or you can actually have a meal that has depth, spiritual, emotional, cognitive depth. And so the difference is what we decide turn our mind to, what we decide that we're interested in. So this koan, all these koans are about giving life to our life and coming from the depths of our being instead of the top of our head. So we have the ability to make an enormous difference. May it be so. Okay. Well, let me just give a second. So that's the end of the recorded part. We'll keep recording here for a moment. Any comments or questions about this whole thing? I wanted to make a chunk that we can cut out and then put on the web, because we've been putting all these on the web, and if you start getting too far afield, it's not helpful. I talked everybody to death.